I'm a user experience designer. I feel like I should give you a quick intro into what that is because a lot of people's eyes glaze over when I tell them that, especially when I'm crossing the border at the airport. If you were to take the example of a beer pitcher, so can we all picture that? Easily, yes, thank you. And let's say the very first beer pitcher didn't have a handle on it, but it could hold the beer really, really well still. But when you go to pour it, especially if you've already had one of your beer pitchers, it's a little difficult to pour, things get hard. And so someone at one point said, I'm going to put a handle on that, and it's going to make my beer experience better. That's user experience. That's someone has improved the experience for you. So basically, I'm putting beer pitcher handles on things. But I do that mostly online. But I also think it's about making things better. I do it because I believe in it. I don't do it necessarily because I get paid, although I do appreciate that. I do it because I think it's an altruistic thing to do. I love that the world around me is improving because of some of the things I'm doing. I'm willing to bet that probably everyone in this room has used something that I got to touch, and that's really exciting to me. But I also believe in open source, and that's actually what I want to talk to you a bit more about today, because I think that it is at its heart about making things better, that it is an altruistic thing, that it is an intrinsically motivated thing to be a part of. So what is open source? I get that question all the time, because a lot of people don't even know that they're using it, even though that they are. At its essence, open source is me saying, this is my idea, and you can use it. You can use it freely, you can contribute to it, you can give back to it. It opens doors, it opens possibilities, it makes things exponentially grow. Often we're motivated for things in different ways. And I love how Daniel Pink describes motivation in his book Drive. So there's 3 different types of motivation. The first one is motivation 1.0, which is essentially survival. Okay, so I need to eat, I need shelter, I need to mate, I need just to survive. Basic motivation. Motivation 2.0, which I think all of us in the room have experienced, maybe are a part of, is the carrot and stick. I got this job, I'm going to get paid, so payment is the carrot that I'm going after. Basically, if I do this, then I get that. And then there's the stick that's saying, oh, you didn't do that, here's the stick. Well, I don't know about you, but that is not enough for me anymore. I don't know if it ever was enough. I don't think it's been enough for most of us. There's a motivation 3.0, which is intrinsic motivation, meaning that I want to do something because there's value in it to me and to the people around me. It's going to make things a better world. But too often we get stuck in motivation 2.0. It's not that I'm lazy, it's just that I don't care. It's a familiar situation to be in, to be honest. When I talk about open source, though, I haven't been involved in open source my whole life, anything like that. Most people don't believe that open source can be a viable option. They think that proprietary is the way to go. We need these companies behind what we're using and developing these ideas for it to be real. In fact, some of the work that I've done in the past, or I've interacted with governments, that's what they're saying. But that's changing. And I'm going to tell you a story about open source here and how what you might think to be a really geeky community is something that you can learn from and maybe should learn from in this instance. So here's a concrete example. Again, Daniel Pink in his book Drive, he talks about 2 different things. So take yourself back to 1993, 94, 95, that era. Anyone in here? No, everyone here had to have been alive then, right? Okay. That was when Windows 95 was coming out. And it was this new exciting thing. It may be funny to look back at, but it was exciting. And with Windows 95 was coming something called Microsoft Encarta. Anybody remember Encarta? Yeah, okay. And it came on like this set of, I can't remember how many CDs it took to load it up. And eventually it was available online. If someone were to tell me back then, Microsoft, with all their resources, would have a competitor that was going to be open source, that was going to be contributed to around the world, volunteers, nobody's getting paid, I would have picked Microsoft, hands down. I would have said, yeah, that other one's going to get crushed. Well, let's take a look at Encarta. 62,000 articles on it. It's done now, too. It ended in 2009. Lots of pictures. It's a really great resource. Just as a note, this is sourced from Wikipedia. Wikipedia, however, is open, free, collaborative around the world. 18 million articles approximately on there right now. It's written collaboratively by volunteers around the world. It's the largest and most popular general reference online. And it's the 7th busiest site online. MSN.com is number 9. So as we look at that and we explore the open source journey here and my journey, I think we need to talk about me just a little bit. I like to talk about me. You have to forgive me on that. As I entered into open source, it was back in 2009, or 2005 rather. I was living in central Alberta, and I love Canada. I travel all over the place, but I love Canada, specifically Alberta. I lived just north of Red Deer in a small city, or a city now, called Lacombe. At that time, venturing out on my own, doing my own business, leaving things behind, I felt alone. I felt like I was in a bit of a wasteland. Not that Central Alberta is a wasteland, but I didn't have the community around me that I needed to move forward. And when you think about the motivation of why you do things, is the why enough? I came to my point in 2005 where I had to look at the what I do and ask myself, is the why enough? So here I am, starting my business. I'm kind of generally excited about that. Thinking about the possibilities, yeah, it could all work out, but then clients are asking me for more and more, and I'm not sure if I can handle that to the point where it's, oh, poor Steve, what's he gonna do? And then a friend of mine, though, told me and said, hey, there's this thing, it's open source. And my response was, open source? You know, how, oh, it's not moving forward. There we go. Open source? I was like, they're not laughing. That's a funny slide. How is this even possible? You're going to let me use this for free? He explained it to me, showed me the software. The software's name was Joomla. A lot of projects have very interesting names. But I started to use it, and I couldn't believe that I was allowed to use this for free. Not only that, but my clients that I was working with had a better product than I could produce on my own or with the people I was working with. And we could collaborate on it. We could extend it. We could do all these things. We just had to let it be free still. And I didn't understand that. So eventually I thought, I need to dig into this further. You know, and the further I dug, the happier I got. Because I began to have my aha moment with this software, with the idea of open source. It was more about the community than it was the software. There were thousands and thousands of people all around the world. And incidentally, that one project, Joomla, has one of the busiest sites in the world. It's ranked number 10 on Google PageRank. But they're motivated by something more, is also what I discovered. They were motivated intrinsically. That's why they were giving their time. They actually believed in this. You know, at least the people I was interacting with. I'm not saying that everybody does. Everything you interact with online, whether it's through your laptops, which are all closed right now, whether it's through your iPhones, anything you interact with an app, basically if you divide it into two types of software, a source code behind it, there's proprietary, which would be Microsoft Encarta. That's an example of that. And then there's open source, which is Wikipedia. Well, I want to tell you about another piece of software that I'm currently working with and really believe in the community around it. Like, I love this project. It's called Drupal. Another strange name, but it's powering a lot of the web right now. And it runs behind the scenes. It's a content management system. So even if you're not familiar with that, picture a website. It's the stuff behind that website that's powering, that makes the content be published easily by the users. If we look at the Drupal community, this is their logo with a whole bunch of names put into it. These are some of the contributors, some of the thousands of contributors that just released Drupal 7, their latest release. If we look at this community and what it's trying to do, we get a real sense of how the possibilities of open source. And this community in particular, and maybe for many, but they say you come for the code, stay for the community. You know, it's true. I came because I needed to use something, and I stayed because I believed in something. You know, but there are lessons to be learned from the open source community, and I want to take you through those. And by the way, a lot of things that you touch this tech every day. Let's look at some examples actually, just so you can see. Fastcompany.com use it, and yes, that's a floating mechanical cloud above the Qatar Stadium. FedEx.com, Semantic Connect, WhiteHouse.gov uses it. I think about 50% of the federal sites in the United States use open source to power them. And WhiteHouse.gov is contributing back to the open source community. They're freely giving back the things that they're developing so that it can improve the situation. MarthaStewart.com recently went to it. Locally, visit Calgary. Bob Dylan uses it. Grammy.com. Deuce, Ubuntu, another open source project. OpenSource.com. It would be kind of strange if they didn't, but and they're advocates of business, education, life, law, government, and how open source thinking can be applied to that. Amnesty International, Oxfam Canada, Adaptive Learning Platforms, Open Architecture Network. This was a 2006 TEDx award winner. Cameron Sinclair is a co-founder here and involved in this. And this is another great example of open source thinking, where it gets us away from software and into, hey, these are buildings. We're going to freely give away the plans for our buildings so that they can be used to help improve someone's situation elsewhere. Clay Shirky said, civic value is created by the participants but enjoyed by society as a whole. So it's created by us, but can be enjoyed by everyone. I got involved in the Drupal project and contribute to it. Any of you can use it at any time. This is true civic value. So let me show you the Drupal project from my eyes at a little bit closer in. So this is the founder of Drupal in 2000 in his dorm room, in his sombrero, just starting that out. And this is him just recently. He's on the cover of his own magazine. You know you've made it when you're on the cover of your own magazine, or you have your own life-size mascot following you around. You know, but recently I was in Chicago for DrupalCon. About 3,000 of us were there, so it's grown quite a bit because that's just a conference for it. And a lot of business was being taken care of, but this is where I really get my impact out of this. This is my friend Larry, and this is what he did as soon as I got there. Gave me a great big hug. Apparently had a photographer ready for it too. He's one of the core contributors to this project, you know, and it's more important to him about the community, that we gather and we share our ideas freely and openly. But don't get me wrong, we geek out here. This is us contributing to the code of it, and this is the next branch of Drupal. Drupal 8 is going to launch someday, and so this is it beginning at DrupalCon Chicago. But let me show you a little bit about how I contribute to Drupal. So here we are, drupal.org. I'm going to log in. And I'm going to look around. There's thousands of things happening. In fact, almost 7,000 things happening in the issue queue this week alone. So I'm going to click on that and help out there if I can. But I'm a designer. I'm not necessarily a coder, so I need to find something user experience related. And that first one, Homebox, looks good. So I'm going to scroll down. OK, good. Yeah, he'd love to help. That's a good start. Now, how's he going to help? So, OK, there's his comments. Scrolling down, you see the bit of code. I need to get to the bottom of this page, though, in order to be able to comment on that. So I'm going to start to really go and scroll. Got the momentum scroll going. So much so I had to edit the video clip. And I'm only got to go into page 2 now at 300 comments. So I go into page 2, get to the bottom, and there we are at almost 400 comments. I think I better check out the issue queue handbook to make sure I know what I'm doing. So I click on that, and here's the key. Drupal, as a community, uses the issue queue to work as a team. As a team. That's how they see themselves. That's sometimes how people see the issue queue, though, when you think about it. But let me break it down to you globally. So this is Drupal. Over 562,000 people in 228 countries speaking 182 languages with one idea. And one idea can become global. Even the founder, Dries, says that fostering the Drupal community is more important than managing the code. How many of you have ever heard of Tom's shoes? Yeah, I'm wearing those exact shoes right now. The reason I put it up there for Our Ideas Matter is Blake. There is no Tom, by the way. Tom stands for Tomorrow's Shoes. They just couldn't fit it on the label. Blake went to Argentina, saw a need where children didn't have shoes to wear, and he shared his passion, saying one-to-one, saying this is a for-benefit company. You buy a pair of shoes from me, give away a pair of shoes. There's a social contribution to our ideas. Our ideas matter. So what drives you? Is it motivation 2.0? Is it the carrot and stick? Or is it a 3.0 thing? Are we going to get stuck in it? So I'm not lazy. Says I don't care. Or can we keep our ideas open? Clay Shirky talks about that there are 1 trillion hours of free time available in the world every year. What are we going to do with that time? I'd like to suggest that we keep our ideas open. Thanks.